What's up, everybody? It's the Big Man on Campus here. Hope you all enjoy the show. As always, I'm the Big Man on Campus. I figured I would take some time tonight and maybe start this every week. I hope I can get kind of something going a little bit more personal with everyone. I know I get a lot of questions in my DMs. I sometimes don't have the ability to, on SBR put out videos that, you know, like this that can address kind of early on what we're doing in college basketball. As you know, many of the previews are coming out, but many of you know, and many of you that follow me know that on Saturdays, generally I do a video where I just take questions on games. But I felt like it'd be important to kind of help people out with early on, kind of getting to know some of these teams and what I do when I look for things in college basketball, and just kind of share some tools of the trade, share some, things that actually, like I said, that I look for, when talking about college basketball. College basketball is such a huge, huge thing. And before I do anything, I do want to retweet this link out. So give me a minute here, guys. And I welcome all of you. And many of you I've talked to before, but if you're new, well, I appreciate you tuning in as well. It means a lot to me, and I hope I can help you guys. That's one of the reasons that people ask me, why are you shopping and selling picks? I'm stopping selling picks because it's very difficult to balance everything. And for me, I work hard, and I that's kind of why I sell picks, just because for me, it helps me with that. So let me retweet this here. Um, as we talk some college basketball. And I want to shout out some people because there are some really great people in here that I want to mention. Guys that have been with me for a while, guys like Guan White, Emza, Mr. Gogster, Ace Farmer. Hello, welcome in. Susana, Shauno, all you guys, welcome in. My channel's growing. I just kind of started my own channel recently. My goal is to really kind of blow this up. And if many of you remember, I know Best Gambler remembers, I've had a podcast for about 4 years, and I started with Spreaker. That was where I got my start. And Best Gambler's been with me the whole time. We used to do that show every single day on the radio, and I hope I can grow it kind of like that in a way. So I welcome you in tonight. If you have any questions, send anything you want. I'll get to everything. I do want to start out first, though, with kind of some of the things that I'd recommend you do if you're going to be betting college basketball. College basketball starts on Friday. And what you're going to see is you're basically going to look at the thing, look at the schedule. And in college football, there's 128 teams. There's normally about 40, 50 games a week, between action and the late week games and then the Saturday games. College basketball is every day. It's all day, every day. And there are 351 teams. Now, 200 or so are lined on a regular basis. The other groups are not lined. Conferences that I'll get into that are a little less known, but for me, that's why I look and read into them, because they'll play a part later in the season, which we'll get to. But it's very important, and this is the key. If you're going to bet college basketball, please make sure you're doing your research. Please make sure you're not jumping in and saying, oh, well, Michigan won the Big Ten last year, I'm just going to bet them this year. There are so many situational things you just have to make it keep account of. You have to understand. You have to see. And as this show goes on, I'll kind of prove those things. Hey, Shoddy K, what's happening, buddy? Good to see you in here. Bobby Hawkins, hey, how you doing? Bobby, had a nice chat with him. How you doing? Glad I could help with anything. Hopefully you guys learned something here. But let me get into some questions. Then we'll kind of go into some other things. I'll start up at the top. How many times do teams within conference play each other? It's like college basketball where they play once. What about rivalries? Is it similar? No clue about college basketball. Normally stay with the other sports. Well, basically, it's very similar to college basketball. They play an out-of-conference schedule, which is a bit longer. But the interesting thing about college hoops is there are tournaments mixed in. There are Maui tournaments, Puerto Rico, Bahamas, all these different invitationals that teams are invited to. And it's a wide array of teams. It's of different groups. You're not going to have they're not all from the same conference. Actually, none of them are. A lot of the time it's, a team from the SEC, a team from the MAC, a team, they're all different. So early on, you'll see those. And they're holiday tournaments and things of that nature. So out of conference play starts with those. They also host their own games. And you're going to see a lot of odd matchups. You're going to look at day one and you're going to see, Iowa State playing, a Missouri, or Monmouth playing Bucknell. You're going to see all these random games, and that's the out of conference. That's the same thing in college football. The little thing is about college basketball, it's a little bit longer of a season. There's more non-conference games. Then come December, around the Christmas time, they jump into non-conference or conference. I'm sorry. So they get into their conference schedule and they play each other twice. As far as getting into it, yeah, it's such a great sport. There's so many teams, and most of which it's such a wide array because you have the high level big blue blood programs, your Kentuckys, your Dukes, your Kansases, your teams like that. But you have a wide array of not only those, but you have so many teams where you're going to have a ton of seniors. You're going to have McDonald's All-Americans that decide to go to smaller schools. You're going to have what's Kentucky every year. We always know them this year and every year for being a team that has all these blue blood recruits that leave after 1 year. There's so many different dynamics, coaching changes, transfers. The transfer market in college basketball is huge. That's one of the biggest things about basketball betting, making sure you're understanding who exactly is on the team, who exactly is, playing, who left, who's still there. Great idea for a program, big man. Let's find value. Thank you, Emza. Great talking to you the other night. Talked to you for about an hour. Good chat. BMOC, any thoughts on Iowa? Big Ten is down to me this year. I'm not huge into it. I like Michigan State a whole lot, obviously with, the Miles Bridges coming back, bringing in Jaren Jackson, bringing in and keeping guys like Cassius Winston, Tum Tum Nair, and, Ward, all those guys. And they have one of the better coaches in the country, a guy that just wins in March, and they're off a down year. They didn't play particularly well last year, Michigan State. They're my favorite team. It would only have been nicer if they would have grabbed Brian Bowen, Jackson's high school teammate. They would have been, to me, possibly the front runner win the title. But they're top five right now to me. They're a team that I think will and can make the Final Four. I do like Minnesota, but I'm not a big Richard Pitino fan. They're very good. Reggie Lynch is an absolutely fantastic defender. Keep Reggie Lynch's name in the back of your head. He's a guy up in the barn that is fantastic around the rim. As long as he stays at a foul trouble, he's very effective. I like Northwestern. I'm a big Chris Collins fan. They had such a great year last year overall. And, finally making the tournament, kind of got that chip off their shoulder. They're a good top 25 club. They're veteran. They're coming into the season with a little bit to prove after last year's exit. Purdue I like, but I don't like the fact that Swanigan's gone. I like their guard play. Vincent Edwards is great. Carson Edwards also very good. But you're going to miss Caleb Swanigan. He was not only such a great offensive player, but he was one of the more elite rebounders in the college basketball ranks. The problem for him that he's having in the NBA is, and this is why I wasn't as particularly high on him as other people were. I had friends of mine that thought he was in the top 30. I thought he was more of a 45 or lower type of player, just because when you have someone that, in his case, he lost a ton of weight. He basically was a bigger kid. He lost a ton of weight. And he became a really high level basketball player. But the problem is, when you're a bigger guy, kind of like myself, if I lose weight, I'm still going to have the same size arms necessarily. I'm not going to be able to kind of do some of the things that other people do that are in shape or taller or whatever. So he's always kind of had those jumping problems. He can't jump as high as other people. He doesn't really get very high off the ground. So that's kind of one of the problems he's had in the NBA. But as far as Iowa, I put them kind of in the middle. I think they're about like 6th or 7th. I think they're slightly better than Wisconsin. I think they're in the Maryland, Michigan, Iowa kind of realm. But I think this is up for anyone. I think from 2 down, I wouldn't be surprised if anyone wins the Big Ten. I think a sleeper for me is Michigan, which I mentioned in my preview of this conference. I'm very high on Michigan. I think with the team they bring back, they made a run last year, a nice run, made that run in the Big Ten tournament. They lose a lot last year, but they also gain a lot too. They went out and still have Mo Wagner, who's another year older. They still have, a John Beeline. They did lose Derek Walton. They lost Zach Irvin. They lost DJ Wilson, who it would have been nice if he would have stayed around. DJ Wilson really could have made this team, to me, a front runner in the Big Ten, but him leaving definitely hurt. But they went and got some reinforcements. They got one of the better transfers to me in the country in Jerron Simmons out of Ohio, a good ball handler, a kid that doesn't turn a basketball over. And that's the key, guys, for Michigan. One of the things I look for when I'm betting college basketball is, does this team take care of the basketball? Does this team not turn the ball over? If I can get that, I'm all over those teams. Michigan last year, #1 in the country in turnovers per game committed, only 9 a game. Really impressive. Those are something that I'm looking at. And I will get to every single question, so keep them coming in. I'll try to go rapid fire here. But overall in Iowa, I keep saying I'm going to get to Iowa, and then I talk about other teams. I'm not a big Fran McCaffrey guy. I never have been. I think he's a guy that really costs his team games. I think he's a guy that's a little immature. I think he's a terrible role model for his players. They're always a team that you got to worry about. They always have good guard play, but you lose a guy like Peter Jock, that's going to hurt. I like Bohannon. I like Isaiah Moss. I like Tyler Cook. They have a really good class here. I mean, they have a lot of younger players. They'll make the tournament. Do I think they're anything special? Not particularly. And that has a lot to do with McCaffrey. I'm not a big fan of his. He's a lot like, for me, Tim Miles at Nebraska. I'm not a big fan of his either. They just don't ever seem to get up over the hump. And in a conference where it's really anybody's other than Michigan State, I just think there's a lot of teams that are better than them. I think Maryland's better than them. I think Purdue's better than them. I think Michigan's better than them. Wisconsin's better than them. They don't do a ton to make me excited. But hey, if McCaffrey can be a little bit more mature and not cost his team games, who knows? Not particularly high on Iowa. Where are we at here? Do books offer player props for college? Not that I know of. Some of the bigger games maybe, but I got to tell you, I'm not a big prop player. I don't really play props in any sport. But the NBA, the pro sports, they're the places that are going to offer those. But again, I don't play them much to begin with. Big man, I got to run, but I have a question. What teams have the most amount of seniors back this year and will be important at the start of the year? Well, I mean, all in all, that's a pretty broad question. I would take a long time for me to go through every one, but most of them are going to be the teams, that are a little less known, the teams where you're not going to have a lot of high level, like the MAC, the Mid-American Conference is a great conference for seniors. Not this year. They actually had a lot of people leave this year. Their year was last year for seniors. If you wanted to bet a team with a lot of seniors or a group of a lot of seniors, the MAC was it last year. They had a ton. But these conferences that are, I guess, a little less known for basketball, like the MAC, are going to have a lot of the seniors. A conference like the Big West, out in, with the Irvines and the Long Beach States. You just really have to keep up on the transfer market. Do yourself a favor. Take a look at teams. And if you have a question, I'm always here. Any question you have, hit me on the DM on Twitter. I'll gladly get back to you and give you my opinion on that. Get me on a show that I do. I'll answer anything. I can pretty much tell you right away if a kid's still out of school. Do you like Eastern Tennessee State? No, not particularly. The SoCo is a great conference, one of my favorites. It's a conference rich with basketball tradition down in the southern United States. I mean, they've had some great teams over years. The Davidsons of the world. Before they moved with Stephen Curry. But the problem with them this year, their year was last year to me. With the great team they had with Mosca Pereira and TJ Cromer, that group, that was their team, Steve Forbes' team. They had a shot. They played Florida in the tournament. Tough matchup there. I still think they're decent. I'm not going to say they aren't. They're well coached. They have some intriguing newcomers. They have a player named DeSante Bradford that is a kid that you can build around. For me, they just lost a little bit too much to win the SoCo. I still think there are about 4 teams better than them. Like Wofford's very good. They have a scorer named Fletcher McGee that can score in bunches. Samford with Wyatt Walker. Mercer with Bob Hoffman, one of the better coaches. He's got 5 seniors back. And the interesting thing that you have to really respect about Mercer is last year they had a kid named Jabri Bird on their team. He was murdered. And they got through the season without him. And not many teams in this conference or in any conference could push through that. Bob Hoffman did a great job of doing that. They've had some personnel issues. One of their players, a father died. He was gone for a period of time. They're a good group of kids, Mercer. Obviously, remember their run in the tournament. With Bob Hoffman at the helm, he is the best coach in that conference. They're a good basketball team. They're one of my favorites. We actually haven't gotten to this conference yet, but to be real with you, Mercer is possibly a favorite. The team that I think will win this conference is Furman. They lost their coach, Nico Medved. He went to Drake in the Missouri Valley, which was an interesting move. I don't fully understand that. I think Furman's a decent place to coach and a pretty solid conference. They have a roster that's really stacked. Chris Acox, Devin Sibley, they're a really good team, Furman. They were a great ATS team last year also. That's something you have to remember, guys. Kind of looking at some of these teams and, seeing if they're a good ATS team. And that doesn't always translate to the next year, but with the same people coming back, I expect Furman to be a really good team. A team that can definitely maintain some of the similar ATS stuff that they had last year. Hello, Ace Farmer, we mentioned, hey, I see you have some questions we'll get to. And Bobby Hawkins sending in a couple here, which I'm excited to get to. I actually got to one of his teams. Yeah, I'm really high, Bobby, on Furman. I think they are going to win the Southern. I'm very high there. Thoughts on St. Bonaventure? I love St. Bonaventure. I really like the A10. It's one of my favorite conferences to bet on in general. It's just rich. It's in my area. So for me, it's easy because I know a lot of these teams already. I know, what Rhode Island has. I know what, the LaSalle's have and the St. Joe's. St. Bonaventure is fantastic. They have a duo and Jalen Adams and Matt Mobley. They are possibly, and I'm just saying possibly, the two best guards in the country together. They're fantastic. It's how far can they take them? Because that's always what the Bonnies have. They always have a good guard play. They have a good home court advantage up in Olean, up in New York. They're great guards. It's how far can they take them? I think they're like a 3 to 5 in the A10. I don't think they're as good as VCU. I don't think they're as good as Rhode Island. I think St. Joe's is an intriguing team. It'll be interesting to see what Dayton has after Archie Miller leaves. But no, I like St. Bonaventure. I love their guard play. They could be a really good ATS team, especially if they're facing a team with limited guard play. Charleston, I'm very high, Bobby, on Charleston out of the Colonial Conference. They're my pick to win that one. Defensively, they're absolutely scintillating to watch. They're one of the best half-court defenses in the country. Cheatley is a conference player of the year kind of player, and they have a little bit to prove to me. They didn't fare well last year in this tournament title game. They had the defense, and that's one of the things you have to respect about them in the Colonial. They're the one team that just really plays amazing defense. They really get after you. I mean, they had a stretch where, they were literally playing every game in the low 60s. And you have to remember, this is what's great about Charleston this year. Kevin Keats is gone at Wilmington. That Wilmington group is kind of out of the way for the time being, and they're kind of the next in line for me. Elon, out of the same conference, I like Elon. I think they're a kind of a similar team to Charleston. They play really good defense. They have 5 starters back from last year. They have a kid named Tyler Sebring that I really like down low. He reminds me a lot of a kid out of Northeastern named Scott Etherton that was there a couple years ago. I like Elon. I just don't know. The question is, if you look at their schedule from last year, they had a lot of conference games that were decided by 10 points or less. They were in these games. They hung around. Can they win those type of games? Can a guy like Brian Dawkins and Sebring, can those two take this team? Can Steven Santa Anna come back? Steven Santa Anna is notorious for being the player that Grayson Allen tripped last year against Elon. Can he come back and be a good senior guard for them? I like Elon. I think they're 3rd or 4th in that conference. They're always going to be an interesting betting angle. Just because they do play good defense. They're a team with a lot of experience, and they're well coached. But they got to go to Duke, first game of the season on Friday. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. I don't know how they'll fare in that game. I would definitely wait a little bit. Elon Furman's a good game on Tuesday, actually. There's some interesting ones for them, and they're going to be tested early on. Florida International, that's probably the spot to back them. Florida International is a dreadful team out of the Conference USA, the worst team in that conference. So those are spots to back them. I'm not looking to get involved with them really against some of the big boys. Western Kentucky. I was higher on them if Mitchell Robinson would have stayed, the All-American, top 10 All-American. He didn't stay. He left. He came back, left again. They're basically just a team full of transfers. If all those transfers play well, they'll be very good and they can win this conference. But if they don't, they're just a group of misfits, really. They have a lot of good players, though. Dwight Colby from Kansas. They have all sorts of good transfers in there. The question is, can they cohesively play together? If anyone could do it, it's Stansbury. Best Gambler. Remember those shows? We enjoyed those. Sleeper in the SEC. Well, I think the question about the SEC sleepers, I think anyone other Kentucky this year or Florida is a sleeper. Alabama, I'm definitely not as interested in right now. Colin Sexton's ineligible right now. That's kind of a kick in the pants for them. He's a really good player, a 5-star guard. To me, a top 3 point guard coming in this class. With him out there, they're not as explosive, and that sucks because I really wanted to see him under the tutelage of Avery Johnson there. So they're not really a sleeper anyway. For me, the sleeper is definitely Missouri. I mean, with how they played over the last couple seasons, I mean, Kim Anderson had absolutely no control of this team. They were whipping boy in this conference. I mean, no one took Missouri seriously. And you look at what a difference 12 months makes. They're right back here, and we're betting them at 18-1 to win the tournament. That's way too low. Missouri's good. Am I ready to lay 18-1? No. I'm going to need like 30 or 40-1 to take Missouri. But they have the best player in the country. Michael Porter Jr. is the best player in the country. I followed him for many years. He is an absolute stud as a player. He is a kid that will go 1 or 2 next year in the draft. And what makes it even more interesting in Missouri country this year is they have a new coach. Michael Porter's there. Plus, Porter was able to get his brother, Jonte, to reclassify. He's there at Missouri as well. They took Nathan Hale as one of the best high school programs that year. Those two really just dominated everyone they played. And they were playing against, the really good basketball teams, up in the Seattle area. So getting him in there, I mean, it's huge for Missouri, and it's good for Columbia. They needed a pick-me-up. They've kind of had a tough, kind of off-the-field stuff going on. But, they already come in. They already have some established players there, a 3-year or 3-star guard coming in Blake Harris. I really like Missouri a lot. I think they're a team that I think at some point you could say, well, this team might push. I mean, they could push Kentucky, but Kentucky's really good. I mean, the problem in this conference, guys, is the recent probe involving different schools in this conference. I mean, whether it's Alabama or Auburn. Auburn was a team I was excited about. They have some players out, but I think if you really wanted me to go deep in the SEC, I actually really like Mississippi State. I think Ben Howland's a great coach. He's assembled a really good backcourt with Nick Witherspoon and Lamar Peters and Quandre Witherspoon. The question is, what do they have in the front court? South Carolina will fall off. LSU will be good in a year or two. Right now, they're not good. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you want a sleeper from an against the spread perspective, LSU might be a squad for you. They're very well coached with Will Wade, and they have a kid. And I know if Donnie Wright's in here, he knows exactly who I'm talking about. His name is Randy Unwasar. He's from Southern Utah. He is one of the best pure scorers you've never heard of. They went to LSU this year. He's a really good player, and he's going to give that team instant offense. They could be a team that could be a real thorn in people's sides down there in Baton Rouge. At some point, though, he is going to get his people in place there, and I think that's what he saw when he took that job at LSU. So for me, sleeper Missouri. I do like Mississippi State. I like LSU a little bit. Do you do math on the numbers or just watch and situations? No, I don't do math. No, I don't really. I don't do the public money stuff is definitely important, especially if you're looking at the top 25 games. It's like football. But no, a lot of this is you're early on really just betting against the books' inability to put the right lines out. Most books don't know what Elon has done or what Chicago State has done or they don't have the time, they don't have the care, and they just don't do it. So early on, you're going to get the ability. The problem is there's a double-edged sword because, and Donnie Wrightsaid would agree to this, and this is why he doesn't bet early on. You're basically just there's no eye test. You haven't been able to see these teams. The thing that does present, though, a kind of a devil's advocate is you do in a way because I've seen a lot of these teams, and I know they're exhibition games, but they're basketball, and all these kids are high-level basketball players. The question is, with most of the top 25 teams, is the cohesion there? Are these teams cohesively good enough? And that's, for me, what you're always going to present in the time that we live, guys. In the top 25, most of the teams are one-and-dones. Most of the kids are brand new. You look at Kentucky, every year they have a brand new starting five. But John Calipari has mastered how to deal with that. I'm going to tell you, though, this year, I don't think they're going to have as many one and done. So it might not be this year for Kentucky, but watch out next year. They might be a real good mix of good, solid seasoned players and good young kids as well, because the class coming in next year is as good as the one this year. How do you think Notre Dame will do? I like Mike Bray, but this seems like a bit of an off year. I don't know if it's an off year. I think with Notre Dame, they're always kind of the same team. I mean, let's be real. Do you ever look at the ACC and say, wow, I think Notre Dame is going to win this year? They don't, because it's really hard to do that with all the big boys in this conference. You got Duke, you got North Carolina, you got Louisville, you got Miami, you got Virginia. I mean, they're always that kind of team. The question is, can the kids that they currently have, can they go and beat a team like a Duke or Notre Dame or a UNC? Of course they can. Mike Bray is a fantastic coach. He's one of my favorites. A guy I really, really like. A guy that actually is a coach. There are plenty of coaches in this conference that I don't think could coach their way out of a fucking paper bag X and O-wise. Roy Williams couldn't coach his way out of a fucking shopping bag. He's a great recruiter, but X and O-wise, he doesn't know shit about basketball. Mike Bray does. Mike Bray knows what he's doing. He knows how to run offense. He knows how to, run sets. Roy Williams doesn't. Roy Williams just gets the best athletes every year. But overall with Notre Dame, that's always the team they are. So I don't really ever have a problem going in. I always think they're a team that can cause problems. And if you want to call them a sleeper, fine. Matt Farrell is a great point guard. That's the truth of the matter. He's one of the best point guards in the country. Temple Gibbs from the Gibbs family, good guard as well. He's got another year in his butt. He was a little turnover prone last year. Bonzie Colson is a fantastic player. Can Rex Pfluger come in there and give them something? He's kind of that wing player. Can he give them that? At guard, I think they're really good. It's just like always, even look back to like when they had Zach August. Zach August was a good, lean, lanky player, but can he go down and bang with some of the big boys? I don't know. And in this conference, there are a ton of big boys. And that's one of Notre Dame's continued problems. You have teams in this conference that are bigger than they are. They can't rebound. The second chance opportunities. And that's why, for me, I'm not lately a big Notre Dame backer. Great guard play, but can they get me a rebound when I need them to? But one thing you always have to remember, they're always a very good foul shooting team. And foul shooting is huge when you're betting college basketball. So, like always, I think they're very good. But do I ever think they can win anything? No. What teams you bet on and bet against? I don't have anything on that just yet. I can tell you what I look for, though. That's all about matchups, bet on and bet against. And I have nothing to go off of, so it's difficult for me to give you a bet on and bet against. I could tell you a team that I'm looking to bet on. But some of the tips that I would recommend is, make sure you're betting on good quality rebounding teams that can shoot free throws, senior-laden teams, disciplined groups, and just educating yourself and getting to know the new season, knowing what coaches are going, knowing if a team has installed a new offensive set, know if a team's running up tempo, know if a team is, got a kid that's injured, stuff like that. And the transfer market is huge. I have to keep saying that. It is a gigantic market. It's huge in college basketball. Football, you don't see it much. But between recruiting and new kids coming in and transfers, it's very difficult to know who is on a team and who's not. Um, my thoughts on Iowa State, Mizzou. Well, there's no line yet. Iowa State, I'm not high on though. If you want to know the truth, I'm not high on Iowa State, and for me, it's not. I'm not high on prom or whatever they do at Iowa State. They just lost a ton last year. It's hard. It's hard to be relevant when you lose Monte Morris, Naz Long, Deontay Burton, and Matt Thomas. I mean, that's the whole team. I'm not a big Solomon Young guy as it is, so you know they're gonna have to rebuild a little bit. But that's what happens. Then they're in a tough conference too. They're in a conference that has a lot of good teams that have gotten better or stayed the same, and they've gotten worse. So it's what happens to everyone. You go through 3 or 4 good years, and you hopefully rebuild. They have an All-American point guard coming in, Lindell Wigginton, I mean, but what else do they have? Not big. Not sure on Iowa State. I want to see what the number is. It's going to be Missouri, though. I like what I see with Missouri. I've seen them play. I can almost bank and tell you that Iowa State's not going to be particularly good. So that's my thoughts on that. I'm betting you catch on, Sasana. Yeah, look, Sasana, if you do the work, you'll get into anything. Toasty, big man for president. Thank you, Toasty. I appreciate that. And keep the questions coming in. I really appreciate this. This is really fun. Any good team, and also, guys, like, subscribe, comment on my videos. Let me know what you think, what you want to see, who you want to see on here. I'll try to get people that I know on here. I'm trying to I'm going to be at the games and stuff, doing some things, and SBR will do so many things. I just really wanted to kind of do one video here to just kind of answer questions and have some time. Where are we at here? Any good teams for Pennsylvania that have value? Yeah, Pennsylvania this year is full of value, actually. I think Temple and St. Joe's are really undervalued this year. Two teams that I really like. We as a Temple guys last year had a tough year. It wasn't a good year for this team. But this year, really excited, really looking forward to the year. Everyone's back. Dunphy's a great coach. And at St. Joe's, I mean, everyone got injured last year. So they're getting back everyone. Lamar Kimball, Shavar Newkirk, Charles Demery, or James Demery, Charles Brown. Everyone's back. They bring in some recruits for Martelli's crew. They're going to be a good team in the A-10. Villanova, obviously. We know about them. Villanova, to me, is a Final Four candidate again. Yeah, I mean, Pennsylvania basketball is really good this year. Even like Ivy League, Penn's a team that I'm excited about. They're one of my sleepers in the Ivy this year, which you'll see at SBR. Pittsburgh is bad. They're really bad. One of my favorite teams in the country, Bucknell, is really good. I'll actually be seeing them on the, I believe, the 16th, I think. I'm going to see them play St. Joe's down at Hagen Arena. It's a great year for college basketball in the great state of Pennsylvania. So I'm looking forward to it. Donnie, love betting conference tournaments. Yeah, conference tournaments are the great ones. Power 5 fade teams. Well, I mean, look, I think, with fade teams, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, ask me a certain team, and I'll tell you if I think they're going to be a bet on or bet against. I think some of the SEC teams, I think early on there could be some trouble. Like, I think Kentucky's extremely talented, but talent and getting it all together on the court is tough. But the talent's there. I mean, and there's no better motivator and teacher than Calipari and getting all of them to play together. So teams like that are always interesting. They're always teams to initially fade just because is the cohesion going to be there? Is Duke going to be able to cohesively play together? I think Grayson Allen could be a tremendous leader. Question is, can he be a leader? I don't know. Better value, easier to find. BMOC has some great early. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Is Chris Collins going to get a big time job after the season? I don't look. I mean, he's in the Big Ten already. I mean, where else can he go? Do you mean like a big time job at Duke? Not until his boy Krzyzewski leaves. But I think he's just fine. I mean, if you're Chris Collins, what more do you need? You're in a good market in Chicago. You don't really have a ton of competition in that city. You are the team. Look at all the celebrities that are up for Northwestern. That's a really good school to be at. It's a great institution. There's a ton of celebrities there. It's a journalism school. I mean, what more do you want? Northwestern's a place to be. It's one of the better up and coming programs to me in the country overall. Their football program's properly run, their school's properly run. I wouldn't leave there if I was him. He's got a great job there. Is Illinois going to be an NIT team again? I would imagine. They're not going to. You can't put everyone in the Big Ten, and to me, unfortunately, they're just kind of a team that in the Brad Underwood era. I liked Brad Underwood. You know, I don't know. I mean, they lost a lot last year, and they're just average. They're like they're not terrible though. Could I see them making the tournament? No, I could too. I think they're better than like Penn State and Ohio State and Rutgers, Nebraska. They're just like a middling team. Probably that's probably their top peak. NIT and the NIT. There's nothing wrong with the NIT, especially when you're a young team. You're not going to just jump in with a new coach and immediately start winning. They have a great home court advantage. I've always been a big fan of their stadium. Just the whole in general. It's interesting. It's cool. Mark Smith, freshman guard, I really like. They brought in Mark Allstork, a player from Wright State that I think is a great signing. Wright State's going to miss him a lot. Yeah, I like them. I definitely like them. Do I love them? No. Do I hate them? No. They're just kind of average to me. Where else are we at? Watching a little Maction. Yeah, Maction's abroad tonight. How many years before Ohio State makes the tournament? Um, I don't know, 2 or 3, probably. I mean, they have a totally new. I mean, Thad Maud is gone. But I like Chris Holtman. I like them at Butler, but it takes a while to, construct the roster, to recruit. If you think this is the Jared Sullinger, Aaron Kraft, Evan Turner group, you're sadly mistaken. I like Keita Bates Diop. I like Jay Sean Tate, but there's limited talent right now with them. They got to recruit. They got to do that. And that's going to take some time. But Holtman's a good coach. He did some great things at Butler after Stevens left. It's only a matter of time. They'll be back. It's a great signing. Great hire. How's Iowa State going to be? Yeah, mention them. Not good. They're a totally different team than they were last year. They were hit hard by graduation. Big man, I seen you were talking about the movie Blow. Have you ever seen the movie American Made? Very good. No, I haven't. I'll check it out though. American Made. Blow's one of my favorite movies. So no, I haven't seen it yet, brother. But American Made. But I'll check it out. I'm glad you told me about that one. Someone's asking who was that here? Guan White asking about Dayton. Um, they had such a great coach there, Archie Miller. Obviously Sean's brother. He did so many great things there. They bring in Anthony Grant, who was kind of in waiting there at Dayton. They're in a tough conference, and they're off a good year. They're always good, aren't they? And it's interesting because there's some interesting names in this team, actually. Giannis Antetokounmpo's brother's on this team, Costas. He plays at Dayton, which is interesting. They're a young team, surely. I didn't do a ton of deep research on Dayton, just because for me, they have a lot to regenerate. I mean, they had a lot last year that they lost. They obviously got a new coach. It's going to take some time there for me with them. But like any other coach, he'll bring his people in. Ohio is such a rich basketball state, but I'm interested. I'm excited. I want to see this Kostas Antetokounmpo kid a ton. That's exciting, So they'll have my eye, but they're not. They're another team that's nothing close. This is gibberish. LOL. Well, then don't listen. Actually, you're going to get blocked. See ya. How about CSU's Baker? How about CSU Bakersfield's future? Can they make the big dance? No, they cannot make the big dance. The WAC is a one bid league, and the unfortunate here's the problem for Bakersfield that you're running into. New Mexico State's always good, and to me, they're the favorite in this conference. They're stacked. Everyone's back. Eli Chua, Sidney Endear. You know, they bring in Zach Lofton from Texas Southern, a really good basketball player. They bring in a new coach. They're always the best team in this conference. But now the problem you have if you're a Bakersfield, you basically had no Grand Canyon involved. Grand Canyon couldn't make the NCAA tournament, but they can now. They're eligible, and they're really good as well. So for me, and I didn't think that they would make it anyway. They lost a lot last year. They lost Dedrick Basil, Jalen Arrington, Matt Smith. They lost a lot last year. So for me, it's Rod Barnes. I think he's a fantastic defensive coach. The old player from Ole Miss. I like Rod Barnes. I think he's an underrated coach. He's a hell of a coach, actually. He just, like many other teams, has been hit hard by graduation. And with Grand Canyon involved now, for me, it's very hard to think Bakersfield can make a run. Can they make a tournament? Sure. CIT, maybe? Sure. But Grand Canyon's a team that will, to me, take Bakersfield's spot. They're well coached under Dan Marley. They have the best player in the conference in Josh Braun. They brought in Casey Benson from Oregon, and they have a ton of money behind them. Grand Canyon, if you don't know about them, they're the only for-profit university in the United States. What they've done in a few short years is nothing short of unbelievable. I highly recommend doing some research on Grand Canyon. They're extremely interesting. Hoping we get a good line on UK versus Vermont. I want to grab Vermont. I mean, you can, depending on the line, I could see it. They're not going to win, no way. But can they hang? Sure. Here's the problem with a team like Vermont against Kentucky. Vermont has 2 or 3 good players: Anthony Lamb, Trey Bell Haynes, but that's about it. Kentucky has. Here's the interesting thing about Kentucky and Vermont. Kentucky has 5 All-Americans playing in their 5. They have All-Americans sitting on the bench. They have 5 All-Americans that played last year that didn't get any playing time, and they're there another year. They're just so elite. I mean, it's hard. But, yeah, depending on the number, I might get involved. What are considered the power conferences? Well, it's no different from the college football ranks. Big Ten, SEC, Pac-12, ACC, Big East, which obviously there's no Big East is in football. It's you're not there. But there's so many teams that you don't have in college football that are good in basketball. The Villanovas, the Kansases, in football, the Syracuse is in the ACC. In basketball, they're in, they're in the ACC too, but it's just the realignment's a little different. I have nothing on the NBA. As far as the NBA, what I think of the Celtics playing the Lakers, I think that game started, unfortunately, Ben, which I didn't have an opinion anyway. What about teams like Alabama? I discussed Alabama. Colin Sexton's gone, so for the time being, I can't get overly involved with them. But until then, I'll be interested to watch them. I like John Petty a lot. Manhattan, wow. To want to talk a little MAAC, I like it. Well, I think Manhattan could win, no, because I think Iona is way better than them. I think Monmouth's pretty good, but I like Masiello. They have to find a way to take better care of the basketball. They were a flat-out mess last year, turning the ball over. They weren't a good team, but their best player was out, Rich Williams. He's back. And look, Steve Masiello always does a great job. It's usually always Manhattan and Iona and Monmouth. But watch out for Siena in the Metro Atlantic. I always like Siena, good rebounding team under Patsos. Is Duke UNC the best rivalry in college basketball? Yeah, I would say so. I still think it is, sure. I mean, there's a lot of good rivalries in college basketball. I mean, some are small conferences, some big, but yeah, I think overall it's the biggest, sure. It's always a great game. Thank you, Bobby. Appreciate it. How good will Gonzaga be this year? They'll be good. Will they be what they were last year? No. I mean, it's hard to be as good as they were last year. They were the national title runner-up, which if you listen to my show last year, you know how much I love Gonzaga, and I do love Gonzaga. I'm going to say something that many people won't agree with, but if you listen to what I say, you'll understand. I think Mark Few overall is the best coach in the country. What he has done at Gonzaga is amazing. It's nothing short of unbelievable, really. He does it every year with literally nothing. He doesn't get 5-star recruits. He barely gets 4 and 3-star recruits. He does it really with recruiting. He goes out and gets kids from other countries. He gets kids that maybe other people gave up on. He is the definition of a coach. He is the definition of someone that grabbed the program and built them up to a height that I don't think anyone thought. But he has a little bit of a challenge this year. But there's a lot of talent on this team still. I mean, you lose like Nigel Williams-Goss, Kornowski, Sabonis, but you still have Josh Perkins, John Williams, a great player, a player of the year kind of candidate. Silas Melson is improved. Killian Tilly comes in, the Frenchman. He'll take Zach Collins' spot. Zach Collins should have stayed in the end college basketball. Zach Collins going to the NBA was a mistake. You're starting to see that at Portland. He's and Emzok can elaborate here as well. Zach Collins should have stayed at Gonzaga for another year. He's not big enough. He's not bulky enough to play in the NBA. He's just getting beaten around too much. I think if he could have did it over, he probably would have stayed in college. But I want to give a name from Gonzaga that I want everyone to look out for. I really believe he's an NBA type of talent. He didn't get a ton of play last year, but when he did, he was really impressive. They have a kid named Rui Hachimura. He's a Japanese kid. He was born in Japan. He's half Japanese. He is a high flyer, man. I mean, he is really impressive. He's going to have a bigger role this year. I like Gonzaga, but I got to tell you, I like St. Mary's a little bit more. They were incredible last year. I mean, and I know they were kind of overshadowed because, Gonzaga was 37-2. But they bring back a lot. Bring back Jock Landale. They bring in Colonial from Old Miss, which is a great get. He kind of fits right into what they do there. St. Mary's is the favorite, but Gonzaga is still really good. I'm moving down, guys. I'm not going to miss anyone. I'm going to get everyone here. Tuned in late. I'm glad you can listen here, Thomas. Tell your friends, guys. You have someone that likes college basketball, grow the channel a little bit, please. Kevin White just subscribed. Great. Thank you. Hopefully we can talk to you again. Roy Williams is so dumb. I'm a UNC fan. He is. He's very overrated. He's a great recruiter, though, and when you're playing at UNC, that's important. But is he at this point really a great recruiter? It's not hard to recruit at UNC, but he's built a great he's built a great thing there overall. Northern Kentucky. I like the Norse a lot. I think they're a team. John Brennan, no one will ever talk about him because in Kentucky, there's two things that matter, Louisville and Kentucky. But, the truth of the matter is John Brennan did a great job at Northern Kentucky last year. They made the tournament, job in the Horizon League. I think they're the second best team. The concern for me is there are 2 or 3 other teams that are good, if not better than they are. But I'm a big fan of what John's done there. They returned 4 starters. Why can't they go and win this conference again? I just think it's Oakland's conference to lose. I'm very high on Oakland. They're one of my favorite teams in the country overall. I like UIC a lot as well. I like Detroit. I love Jaleel Hogan. So I like this conference. It's one of my favorites. And I like Northern Kentucky. I just feel like, there are better teams than them this year. South Dakota State, you're picking all my favorite teams. Yes, I love Mike Daum. I think overall, Mike Daum, I think by the end of the year, Mike Daum could be the best player in college basketball. I think he has the numbers to back that up. He's just he's hard to really game plan for, Mike Daum. He's a huge player, but he can go out and shoot the basketball. He can really put a ball on the floor. He's amazing, which many people saw last year in the NCAA tournament. He's the real deal, Mike Daum, and he's going to dominate the Summit League this year. He'll put up 40 a couple times. Don't be surprised to see him as one of the All-Americans that we might see towards the end of the year. Little MEAC talk. Yeah, I mean, Norfolk State is a consistent program, but they're not someone that I'm looking at in the MEAC this year. The MEAC's a team that you're not going to see a lot of games lined until the end of the year when we get into MEAC Mondays, but there are good and bad things about the MEAC. One bad thing is early on in the season, my advice to a lot of you guys, when these teams, Coppin, South Carolina State, Delaware State, North Carolina A&T, Howard, Savannah, when you see them up against big Power 5 teams, fade the fuck out of them. They're bad. They can't play at the level of those two teams or those big teams. You're going to see big numbers, but lay a lot of the time. Coppin State is a bad program. They'll get better. Juan Dixon has a big job there, though. But yeah, that would be one angle in the MEAC. But I actually like Morgan State. I think they're the best team in this conference. They have a really potent duo, Tiwi and Kendall and Philip Carr. They have a little bit to prove coming in off third place. I like them. I like Morgan State. I think the Bears out of Baltimore are the team to beat in the MEAC. It's just early on. We're not going to have much of a chance. We'll have to wait till the end of the year. I'm really high on Niagara. Oh, you meant Grand? How do you get Niagara and Grand Canyon mixed up? I guess they're both landmarks, aren't they? Yeah, I'm high on Grand Canyon. I'm not that high on them, though. I think New Mexico State is better than they are. What about the Big East? I know you hate Villanova. I hate Villanova, but I love them from a basketball perspective. I don't like the school. I despise Villanova, but you can't hate greatness. I mean, Jay Wright's a stud. He does a great job there. They're extremely dangerous. They're the best team in the Big East. And to me, I think they're going to go to the title game this year. I think they're that good. Jalen Brunson is an All-American. Comes from good stock. They have 2 recruits coming in that I saw play personally up in the Philadelphia area, Demir Cosby-Roundtree and Colin Gillespie, and they're fantastic. He just does a great job. He gets Spellman back, a 5-star big man. They're just loaded. Villanova will be there at the end. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it. What site is the best for basketball stats? Your head, I guess? No, I don't know. College Court Report, who I do blog for on there, they do a great job. I actually, you'll see me making some gambling picks on there this year. Jordan Majewski does a great job across the floorboards, staring at the floorboards. Ken Palm, obviously, though I don't really do much with him just because if you want stats, I mean, he has them, but, trends, it's really just about, watching the games. What's up, Lucky? How you doing, buddy? Is Nasir playing this year? Nasir Little. I'd imagine he'll play, but I don't really see him being a huge factor right away on this team. I still also think the shoe will drop with him in that federal probe, but we'll have to wait and see. Alabama, Rob, I discussed a couple times until we get Colin Sexton back. I can't get involved with Alabama. This chat is epic, funny. No Tho Marino. Yeah, thank God we don't have to deal with his fucking ass. That's one of the great things about running this chat. I don't have to deal with fuckheads like him. Nothing but good knowledge. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Stephen F. Alston, a little Southland, huh? I always like hearing about teams that people can't bet on early on, but they want to hear about Stephen F. Austin. Yeah, look, I think they're the favorite in this conference. They kind of had to reload after kind of some coaching changes, but Kyle Keller's done a good job there. They have a couple incoming guys that I really like. I mean, the truth of the matter is I'm not big on this conference in general. A team like New Orleans is lost a lot last year after their run in the NCAA tournament. Texas A&M Corpus Christi's good, but they lose Rashawn Thomas. But they have the best player. For me, it's Corpus Christi. I'm a big fan of them. I think they could challenge to beat Stephen F. Austin. Ehab Amin is a great guard, but Stephen F. Austin's a team that, as always, many people understand and know. Do I think they're the best mid-major program? No, but they will be a team that probably will come out of the Southland. Thoughts on Wichita? Very high on them. Problem with Wichita is, remember, Cal 707, they're without their 2 best players till like December. They're still very good, though. So they'll deal with that, and as conference play starts, they'll be fine. I think they win the conference. They'll win the American this year, which is kind of cruel after just being included. Is Rhode Island a bet-on team? Yes, very much so. I really like Rhode Island. I love Hurley. I love their guard play. They have a kid coming in named Fats Russell. He's from Philadelphia. Saw him play at Imhotep. Great player. I think they're a team that has a lot of unfinished business after last year. Do I think Bruce Pearl gets fired? Yes, because he's not playing the game. He can't just not talk. Yes, I think he'll get fired. I know college basketball, but what's up with NC State, Boston College this weekend? You know what, Ace? Remind me tomorrow. We'll talk about it on the show. I'm trying to keep this to basketball just because that's what some people want to hear about. Thanks for all the info. I watch you on here when you have your own national show someday. I hope so. Thank you, Joe. That's nice of you to say. Um, that's pretty much going to do it, guys. Looks like the viewers are dwindling. I know we might get some people to watch us after the fact, so we welcome them in as well. But I think we went through a lot of teams. We went through a lot of different groups, a lot of mid majors, a lot of high majors. I'm excited about the season. I really am. It's a great time to get involved. Just do your due diligence and educate yourself. Don't just jump in because college basketball's on. It's important that you do the research. It's important that you take the time to understand how teams are and what they do, and really just find conferences that work for you. For me, like mine are the A10, the Colonial, the Summit, Mountain West, the Big Sky, the American. Find conferences that you work well with. That's important. Don't just jump in. Before I go, I will give a couple teams that I'm intrigued by this year personally. Oakland, Bucknell out of the Patriot League, San Diego State, Miami, big Kansas. I love Kansas, big fan of them. Temple, Villanova, like I said. A lot of the West Coast teams. We did a Pac-12 preview. The Pac-12 is stacked. I mean, UCLA, USC, Arizona, Oregon, Utah, UCLA. I mean, Pac-12 is really loaded. That's going to be an interesting conference this year. Thank you, Cal. Appreciate it. But yeah, other than that, and one thing I'll also say, when you have a Saturday card or you have a Friday card like this week, doing this is not good. Don't do that. Early on, find teams that work for you and stick with them. Because 9 times out of 10, if they're good early on, they're going to be good all year ATS. Like Furman, they were good all year ATS last year and maintained the whole season. So find those teams that work for you and, go all at them. Other than that, you're on your own. What do I know about the UCLA players in China? They're out on bail. I think it's unlikely they'll go to jail. From what I heard, here's what I'll say about that. Okay, after finding out a little bit more of info about it, let's just say I think they should, kiss their father's face that Donald Trump is in China right now, because the Chinese government will do everything. It wouldn't necessarily sit right, I think, if they had some big time scandal involving UCLA basketball as Donald Trump goes into their country. They're a political country, just like everyone else. I think lawyers will step in, the consul will step in. They're out on bail, which is not normal in China. I think they'll be fine. And this is a great learning experience for them. Because the truth of the matter is they're all high-level recruits, especially the two that you haven't heard of. They're top 50 recruits. But I think they'll be okay. I don't think they're going to do hard labor for 10 years. And when they say 3 to 10 years, a lot of the time it's meant to scare you. But from what I've heard, I think they're going to be okay. Totals. Yeah, I mean, definitely watch that. I mean, you just want to see how teams play, tempo, pace, that kind of stuff. The rules, obviously, last year, that was big. How the officials calling games. I'm not a big totals guy in the college. I mean, I'll get involved once in a while, but not big. So early on, I'll wait for that. But you and I can talk about that on a private call for sure. Other than that, guys, I'm going to jump off. Been on for about an hour. I do have to do something else in my life at some point. So I'm going to jump off. But other than that, catch me every day on sbrpicks.com. We'll be back tomorrow at 12:30. Donnie and I talking everything in the world of sports. Subscribe, hit the like button, comment on my page, tell your friends, reference this back. This is a great way to reference. We have it timestamped, so that'll be cool. Thank you all for listening. One more thing. What about underdog money lines? Um, I don't know. It's really a case to case thing, but like for instance, on Tuesday you have like Michigan State playing Duke and those kind of games. Early on, I'd be more inclined to take the points and to take the money lines with those teams underdog wise. But it's really a game to game thing. And if you have games you want me to help you with and look at, I'll gladly help you with it. Other than that, guys, enjoy your night, enjoy your Wednesday evening, have fun with the Maction. I got a couple tickets going as well. So hope you all enjoy your night, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.